Hey everybody, welcome to Home Recording Made Easy and Mix Tip Tuesday, where every Tuesday I show you a new mixing tip to help you make more professional sounding mixes in your home studio. Before we get to this week's tip, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Make sure you hit that notification bell and also stick around to the end of the video, because at the end of the video I have something I want to give you absolutely free that's really going to help you with your mixing training, so be sure to stick around. Okay, everybody, welcome. So in this video, we're gonna do a part two to our, several good practices videos. So last week I did a video where I gave you 4 tips on just things that you ought to keep in mind, practices you ought to try to employ to help you not only get a better mix, but more importantly, a more consistent mix. I want your mixes to be consistent from mix to mix from a quality standpoint. And some of the tips I gave you last week are definitely going to help you with that. And this week will be the same. So again, we're not going to do any sound examples, no plugins. Again, these are just things you ought to write down. You ought to try to employ, if not all of these things, at least part of these things. And I promise you that it will help your mixes get better and more consistent, because I use a lot of these tips to this day. So tip number 1 is you want to check your mix on several different sound sources if possible. We've talked about this before on the channel, actually quite a bit, but I still get in my live streams, I get this question a lot from folks through emails where, again, they're frustrated. Usually it's more of the people that are new to mixing, where they get things sounding a certain way in their studio and they bring it out to their car and it doesn't sound the same. Or they bring it into, on their earbuds or their iPads or whatever, on their phone, it doesn't sound the same. And it's especially in the low end, which is typically where that problem happens. So one thing you want to make sure you do, especially if you have a mixing environment that doesn't have the proper acoustic treatment, the room is not the most ideal space for mixing, which is most of our home studios, you want to make sure that you check your mix outside of your studio in as several different areas as possible, or different systems as possible, to try to strike that balance. Now, also keep in mind that this does not mean that if you have a nice set of studio monitors where 6 inches or 8 inch speakers and a subwoofer and you got the bass really pumping and you got it sounding good, that when you play that back on your iPhone or on a set of earbuds, the bass isn't going to be the same. You also got to keep in mind, some people tend to forget this, that, low end bass, especially in kick drums, you need to have a larger speaker that's pushing a good amount of air to be able to hear those frequencies. Things like earbuds, iPhones, laptop speakers, or small little car speakers don't always have that ability to go down to those lower frequencies so you could hear it the same as you do in your studio. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind as well. You got to compare apples to apples. However, the rest of your mix ought to sound about the same. Now again, every system's going to sound a little different, but that's something you definitely want to do. Check it in your car. Check it on your phone, make the adjustments in your studio so you get a nice balance in all systems. Now, there's a couple of plugins that you can try. One is, which I recommend all the time, is the Mix Checker Pro by Audified. Now that's a plugin that will allow you to do, and I have a YouTube video on this. I'll try to remember to link it in the description box, but you can search all of my plugin reviews and check for the Mix Checker Pro. Great little $99 plugin, I think it is, or $79 plugin, where it emulates many, many different sound sources, everything from laptop speakers to home stereo systems to car speakers to iPad speakers, all different types of systems that they emulate. So you can kind of, with just one plugin that you put on your master bus, you can check several different sources. So if you don't have the ability to physically run to a bunch of different places, or you just want to make it easier, check out the Mix Checker Pro by Audified. And there's other ones on the market. That's a really, really good one to check to make sure that your mix is going to translate when you get out of your studio into the outside world. So check your mix on several different sources as possible. And that's tip number 1. Let's go on to tip number 2. Okay, tip number 2 is a tip that I give students all the time and they go, oh, I never even thought of that. But this is a great tip. Tip number 2 is shut off your screen, meaning your display monitor, and use your ears. So when you start getting down to the final mix, you know, we're all mixing in the box today, right? We're all looking at a computer monitor like the one sitting in front of me, and we're looking at the plugins, and we're watching the needles, the needles move on the plugin, and we're watching the fader meters going up and down, and we're doing a lot of mixing with our eyes and not so much with our ears. And so a great tip is to just physically shut your screen off, or if you have a dimming switch on your keyboard, just blacken it out or close your eyes and listen, especially when you're doing things with EQ and compression. It's easy to look at the meter and say, oh, I think the meter's got to hit a certain number on the meter. Forget all of that. Use your ears. It's very easy to fall into the trap of looking at the screen. So as you're mixing, as you're tweaking things, as you're getting down to your final mix and you're doing your final tweaks and your balances, sit with your eyes closed. Don't touch the keyboard and the mouse. Hands where I can see them, and listen. And don't make any changes. Don't hear something and go to the mouse and go to the key. Listen. Take some notes. What do you hear? Dictate into your phone. What do I hear? Then go and make the change. That's going to help you as well. Okay, we got to get back to using our ears and not our eyes. Happens a lot. I use that an awful lot on a client mix. At the end of the mix, before I export that mix, the first thing I do is either walk to the other side of the room or close my eyes or turn my chair. I do something. I don't want to look at the screen. I just want to listen to the speakers. What do I hear? Okay, can I hear everything? Can I pick out each individual instrument? Can I hear every guitar? Can I hear every keyboard? Can I hear every vocal? You have the clarity? Is the panning right? Is something too loud? How is that kick drum and the snare? Am I losing the drums in the mix? How about the bass guitar? Ask yourself these questions, jot down some notes, then come back and make your final tweak. So tip number 2, shut off your screen, use your ears. It will absolutely, without a doubt, help train your ears. And it'll help you from making too many moves that are unnecessary, that'll really more screw up your mix than make it sound better. So let's move on to tip number 3. Okay, tip number 3 is another tip that I tell everyone about, all my students, and not a lot of them have heard of it. Tip number 3 is real simple. Before you export your final mix to put on your website, to submit it to your mixing contest at mixingmadeeasy.net, more about that at the end of the video, for a client, wait 24 hours before you make that final export and give it one last quick listen with a fresh set of ears. Talked about this a lot in live streams and in other areas when I talk to students that ask me about some things to help my mix be more consistent. This is another big one. You're doing a mix, you've been mixing for 3 or 4 hours. Last week we talked about putting a time limit on your mix. Don't mix for 3 days the same song. You shouldn't take 3 days to mix a song, right? 3 or 4 hours, you got a mix done, you export it, you send it out. Yeah, it sounds good. And you get to the finish line and you rush. Take a step back. If you can wait 24 hours, come back the next day, listen to that mix. Your first impression is going to be the right one. The first thing your gut tells you to do is going to be the last final tweak. Especially if you're working and you're sending out client projects. Build that into your time frame. When someone says, hey, I got your song you're going to mix, how long does it take you to mix the song? When can I expect the song to get back? Add a day, instantly. When someone asks me to mix one of their songs, how long is it going to take for me to mix their song? Let's say it's an average song, 20, 30 tracks, basic song, not too much craziness, just a basic thing. I tell them 3 days, minimum 3 days. Can I mix it in a day? Absolutely, I can mix it in a day. You can send me the session at 9 o'clock in the morning. I can have that mix back for you by 8 o'clock that night. But I don't ever tell a client that. Why? Because I want the time to listen, to check it and double check it before I send them my first draft. I want my first draft to my client to be the final draft if at all possible. Now, there's always going to be, hey, can you turn up the background vocal a little bit? Hey, that guitar solo needs to be a little bit louder. Why? Because the guitar player is the one that's hiring me to mix the song, right? Or the drummer, hey, the kick drum's not loud enough. You know what I mean? But I want them to hear that mix right out of the box and go, whoa, that sounds great. A couple little tweaks. I allow myself that 24 hours. If I finish that mix that day, I do not export the song and send it to the client that day. Under no circumstances, okay? It's the next day. If not, the following day. Sometimes I'll give myself 48 hours before I listen to that mix again. Forget about it, get it out of your head, first impressions, okay? That's important. Now, you may not always have 3 days. There may be certain circumstances you just can't wait, client can't wait, okay. But where you can, when you're taking on a job, tell them it's 3 days to mix the song. Mix the song in a day or less than a day based on my tip from last week. Give yourself another day or two to sit with that song and make the final tweaks. If you're entering your song into the mixing contest over at mixingmadeeasy.net, I tell my students this all the time. Don't just finish up a mix and send it to me, because it's not your best mix. You have, 25 days in the month before you have to send me your mix. Take your time. Make sure those final tweaks are right. So again, wait 24 hours. If at all possible, it will absolutely help you. And you will find 99% of the time when you go to make those final tweaks, you'll be glad that you did, because you will have missed something if you just rush it out the door. Okay, so that's a tip. So that's tip number 3. Let's move on to tip number 4, shall we? Okay, tip number 4 kind of plays a little off tip number 3, and it's kind of another way of saying something I said last week in last week's video. Tip number 4 is know when to stop. When to stop tweaking, when to stop mixing, stop putting plugins on, stop twiddling the knobs. You gotta know when to stop, okay? And that's hard, especially if you're the writer, the composer, the artist, and the recording engineer and the mixing engineer, and you're so close to the music. If you allow yourself, you will tweak this thing forever, and you will make it sound worse in the end, more times than not. Now, last week we talked about giving yourself a time limit. I'm only going to allow you a certain amount of time to mix the song. Put some time constraints on you. So you can't fiddle with 500 plugins. You have to make a decision. You got to move on. Usually, the gut first instincts, first instinct of what to do is usually the right one, more times than not, okay? If you're brand new to mixing, maybe not so much, but as you start becoming a more seasoned mixing engineer, those instincts will take over. You'll know what to do, and you'll be surprised how quickly you can mix a song. You got to know when good enough is enough, when it's done. Will the next mix be better? Absolutely. You always say, this is my best mix today. I will get better on the next mix. But the more you sit with a mix, the more tweaking you do, it's going to make the mix sound worse. And I know this because, again, I have lots of students over at mixingmadeeasy.net, shameless plug again, where I hear their mixes, and then I'll ask them, well, what did you do? And they'll write me a 3-page email of all the things that they got some wild things going on. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you way overbaked the cake, man. You don't have to get that crazy with it, especially if the raw tracks were recorded good to begin with. Okay. Now, experimenting and learning and getting in there and getting under the hood and twiddling the knobs to learn what your plugins do, to learn what you can and can't do. That's part of the learning process. Okay. I set that aside. But once you're beyond that, you want to be quick, easy, know when to stop. It's done. And that's going to change from mix to mix a little bit, but you want to keep asking yourself, write that, put it as a sticky note right on your screen. When do I stop? When is it good enough? Okay. Important. Kind of ties into give yourself a time limit. Don't let yourself take 3-4 days a week to mix a song. That is obscene unless you have 1,000 tracks and you're scoring a film. If you're mixing a basic song, popular music song with less than 50 tracks in it that's recorded halfway decent, once you're done editing and everything, it should take you no more than 4 to 6 hours to mix that song. If it does, there's something going on there. Now, again, there is exceptions to that, but that's a general guideline. So I talked about that last week. This week, I want to reiterate, know when to stop, okay? So that's it for this week's tips. Those 4 tips, along with last week's 4 tips, those are 8 tips that you ought to keep written on a piece of paper right next to your workstation so you're constantly looking at it. Don't forget. Keep reviewing it. Am I doing this? Am I doing this? Am I getting too long? What am I doing? All these tips are going to help you deliver more consistent mixes from mix to mix to mix, and it'll help you create your own mixing sound, your own mixing style, okay? You'll put your own stamp on your mix. Your mix will sound completely unique from anybody else's mix because you'll develop a more consistent workflow and you will turn out more consistent product. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. And again, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. And again, I want to give you a couple of free gifts. And now, if you're brand new, and this is the first time you've watched one of my videos here at Home Recording Made Easy, and you have never heard of homerecordingmadeeasy.com, well, I got a gift for you. Go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I want to give you 5 free mixing training courses. It's right on the homepage, big orange button. You can't mix it. 5 free courses so you could take all these mixing tips every single week and apply them to actual recorded tracks, multi-track sessions, recorded really well, different styles of music to help you with your mixing chops, okay? And you give video, a whole instruction video showing you how I mix the song and give you a bunch of additional tips and tricks where we go down deep into mixing, much more than I do here on YouTube. 5 free mixing courses if you're for first time, homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Now, for people that have been around a while and you already know about Home Recording Made Easy and you already got your 5 free videos, what do I have for you? Well, you know what I have for you? I have a coupon code for you. YouTube 25. You put YouTube 25 into any one of the checkout screens on my website and take 25% off any training course. Any course, 25% off. I don't know. I have 50, 60, 70 courses already, all on recording, mixing, and mastering, all kinds of stuff. Go to Home Recording Made Easy. If you're missing one of your courses and you don't have the entire catalog as you should, take 25% off. YouTube 25. Now, lastly, for the cats and the kittens that are really into mixing and you really want to learn the craft of mixing and you enjoy mixing and you're looking for a training resource that can be continuous from month to month to month to help you get better, in a very non-technical way, by the way, perfect for beginners and intermediates, I want you to check out mixingmadeeasy.net. And for a limited time, I have a special offer for you. Link will be in the description box below. I want to give you 40% off an annual membership at mixingmadeeasy.net. That's less than 40 cents a day. For less than 40 cents a day, you're going to get a new song to mix every month. You're going to get about 4 to 6 hours of training videos where I walk you step by step in real time from start to finish and show you how to mix that song. And you're going to join a community of like-minded recording engineers, home recording musicians that are all getting better at the craft of mixing. We have a community forum. We have a whole bunch of freebies. Click the link in the description box. Go to mixingmadeeasy.net. There's a video there explaining all the benefits that you get. And then the link underneath that in the description box will give you 40% off an annual membership. It's the best mixing training you will find anywhere at any price, in my humble opinion. So go check it out today. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. Now, I want to hear from you. Leave some comments below. What other mixing tips do you have beyond the ones that I gave you in this week's video and last week's video? You didn't see last week's video? Links will be in the description box below. Go check it out. You should be making sure you hit the notification bell. Every week I put out a Mix Tip Tuesday video. You should be checking out all these tips. There's a playlist of Mix Tip Tuesday 2020 videos. Go check that out as well. But I want to know what mixing tips you have. You have any little secret golden nuggets that you can share with us? Leave comments below and let me know. And until the next Mix Tip Tuesday, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.